All right. Spencer.Leamer with Sotheby's over in Bellevue, Washington. Got my dear friend and loan officer with Guild Mortgage, Tom Goldsmith,
Hello.
in the hizzy. And we're going to go through last week's stats in the real estate market
I gotta
because,
give my dad joke though.
oh, yeah, I'm not going to forget about your dad joke.
Gotta kick it off with the dad joke.
You got
Always
it.
HR approved.
Let's hear this thing. I'm
Okay.
excited.
All right. If April brings flowers, what does May bring?
Um, Rain.
Pilgrims. Mayflower. It's best I could do today.
I'm not gonna lie, I felt pretty special. That one went over my head a little bit.
I have to say, first time I read it, it went over my head for a second too, and I went, "Okay, got it."
That was only like 1,600 years ago.
Oh, I had another one this morning I read. It was like, "Dear math, shut up and solve your own problems." I thought that one was pretty funny. Anyway, now we can get to serious stuff.
Love that. Well, I mean, real estate, I feel it cooling off a little bit, but
Do
it's
you?
still trucking along.
Yeah, I have some good stats for you today.
Nice. Yeah, I don't well, let's just
Yeah, take a look.
just
What do we got?
let's pop this open here.
Yeah.
I want to compare. I'm going to try and compare to what we looked at last week too. So just bear with me on I've got the command center here with all these screens and the iPad and all this stuff here. So, all right. So we're going to look at Seattle first. This is looking back to May. And this is what I want to look at here. So you can see on the left here, highlight this. We've got last 3 weeks versus the last same 3 weeks in July. Same thing we look at every week. And this is what we want to look at here. These numbers are actually going to fluctuate, as we get more data.
Mm-hmm.
So when we look at last week's, this Seattle, make sure that's Seattle single family. There we go. 5.2% negative on the inventory and 0.5 up positive just in the last week. And we're narrowing the gap on the sold inventory and narrowing the gap closer to zero on the pending inventory. And what that tells me is things are just leveling off or potentially even slowing down. But when you look at a year ago, 49% up on the inventory. We're up 53% on the inventory versus a year ago. Down 32 and 16% on pendings and solds. 32 and 19 pendings and solds. So not a huge difference there, but we're up, massively on the inventory. So that, kind of explains the picture of what we got going on. But this is days on market versus percent of list price. And this is just going to show us here. This hasn't changed real much at all versus last week's 17 day on average, 98% of list price. Oops. 1898, not a huge change. And if we go pricing, this is what everybody wants to know. So the for sale price, this is what people list their home for on the market when they list it. So up 1.3% versus the same period last month. And whoops. Versus last week, we were 2.7% up, 1,376,000 on average list price, 1,374,000 average list price. So going down a little bit, kind of slowing down on the listing prices, which is what we always see going into the fall and in the wintertime. Your pricing and your list price and your sales price is always going to dip, usually in the Seattle metro area in the fall, and 9.5% down on the sale price versus 15% down last week. So that's getting a little bit closer to zero as we move on in the data. But overall sales prices are depreciating, and our for sale prices are depreciating, and average sale prices are pretty much neutral for Seattle single family homes. Now, when we look at days on market, those are still up versus last month. And when you look at last year, still way up. You can see this has jumped pretty significantly since March. This
is inventory on closed.
This is inventory based on closed, yeah. So still a seller's market, and we really need more than 6 months of inventory to see a real true buyer's market. So this is Seattle single family homes. This is going back to 2007. So here is 6 months here. We're a ways off.
We're about 1.5 now.
We're a ways off. 3 to 6 months. Oh, that was a good line.
That's all right.
3 to 6 months. This is what we call neutral market, or a normal market, So again, you can kind of see we're still way off from that as well. So just a little perspective there for people who are out there shopping, who are like all giddy because they're thinking they're going to find a deal out there. Yes, you will find some deals, because if you look at this, sales prices versus sold prices, they're off a little bit from each other. They haven't quite crossed yet. So yeah, will you find some deals out there? Yes. But you're going to still have to jump on them. You're still going to have to write a fairly competitive offer, because sellers, they want certainty right now, because this is the dog days of summer when stuff doesn't sell as quick, usually in a normal market. And so sellers want certainty, and they don't want to be, have all these inspection, a 10-day inspection contingency, or like all these other contingencies, appraisal, financing. They want to know that the buyer's serious and they're going to close this thing. They don't want to have to put their home up and down, back on the market, off the market, So just if you're a buyer out there, beware of that. Now let's look at rents in Seattle for single family homes. 2 and 3 bedroom, most common, $2,850 and $3,450 respectively on the median rents. So still, significantly below mortgage, but, we all know that there's other benefits to buying and owning your own house versus renting. So we won't go through those today. And now let's look at East Side. This is for sale inventory, sold and pending. And we've got down about 9% on the for sale inventory, up 15% on solds, up 21.7% on pending inventory. Now let's look at what we saw last week, which is going to be this one, East Side single family. We were 9.2% last week, narrowing that gap, bringing it a little bit closer to zero. 8.7 on solds, 14% on solds on the East Side single families. So that's going up. And 26.1 last week. And we're bringing it back a little bit closer to zero on the pending. So this makes sense because the last 2, 3, 4 weeks we saw a pretty significant uptick in pending inventory, and so those pending sales 21, 30 days ago are now closing. So but we're seeing a little bit of a reduction in pendings since then. Even though overall kind of, we're seeing this upward trend and this, we'll see what the August stats bring when those actually print.
Right.
But, just reading the tea leaves here on the weekly stats. Percent of list price versus days on market, your 94% of list price here on the East Side. So, that's down 21%. And last week, we were 94 still. So average days on market last week were about 24. It looks like we're still sitting at about 24. So still up on that. Pricing on the East Side single families. Last week versus this week, 2.349 million. Average sale price 1.821 average sold price last week on the East Side. So we're down 5.2% versus last month, same period. 2340. So they're down on the for sale price too. So sellers are starting to get, maybe a little used to taking the advice of their agents,
right?
Instead of
shooting for the moon.
So that's what that tells me there. But even though the sales price is depreciating, we are still up 13.3% versus the same month a year ago. So still
That's impressive.
Okay. Still doing okay on the East Side, still in the double digit. Inventory on the East Side, about 2 months. So actually a little more than Seattle. Have a little bit higher median price point over here though. So that's not surprising. Versus 2.1 last month. So, last week when we looked at these. So maybe starting to level off a little bit on the days on market.
Yeah.
Now, if we look at the East Side, 15-year look back on the days on market, this is going to be a little bit different than Seattle. Here's about 6 months right here.
Mm-hmm.
Here's about 3 months here. Neutral. So a little bit closer to that neutral point. We're about a month off from it. So it feels a little bit more like a buyer's market over here on the east side. And I'm noticing it as well. Um, things are just sitting longer. Things that homes that aren't updated, they don't have all the bells and whistles. They're buyers just, it's not their fault, but it's hard to have an imagination when you walk into a home and it's not updated. So it takes a really solid agent working with them to help them visualize what it could look like. And if they did those updates, trim, paint, new doors and windows, flooring, all that cosmetic stuff, what that would cause their home to maybe be worth in 6 to 8 months. So that's what we're trying to do now in this market, because you can find those deals if you pick up something with grandma's flocked wallpaper. Sahali, if anybody out there is familiar with Sahali, it's a gated neighborhood in Sammamish. Very desirable neighborhood. It's actually a golf course there where they held the US Open a number of years ago.
PGA Championship.
PGA Championship.
Okay.
I'm not a golfer yet.
We'll get you out there eventually.
We'll get out there, get on the links. But we looked at a home. It was a huge 2,000 square foot, 2-bedroom, 1 3/4 bath townhome. Seller wanted 700 for it. Now, if you've looked in Sahali or been shopping in there, the homes go for way more than that. Usually we're talking in the 900s to like $1.3 million for a 2 and 3 bedroom, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
And this one was super dated, needed. My guesstimate was at least $200,000 to $250,000 worth of work. That's a lot of work to bring it up to 2022 standards. But putting that work into it would have taken the value of that house well over $1 million from 700. So, you're all in costs with 7, 9. So you walk into that with a couple $100,000 worth of equity. Not too shabby.
Not too shabby. I think too, correct me if I'm wrong, but when we were seeing houses fly off the market in the last couple of years, it seemed to me that a lot of sellers were just throwing their houses on the market and they weren't doing a lot of updating or anything. They were just throwing it out there and people were just snapping them up. Whereas now it might be more what you're saying. So it might be more beneficial now for sellers to do a little updating themselves to enhance the equity in their places. Whereas before it was just homes were flying off the market. They didn't have to do anything and they were just flying off the market. But now you're saying that if they really want to maximize the value of their place, they should do a little updating.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Or price it accordingly.
Right.
Either of those two scenarios are going to work out great. One just obviously requires you to, put some more dough up front. Now there's some other, you can get creative and borrow money or, go to a hard money lender and
you get an equity line with your bank.
Get an equity line because everybody's got $1 million worth of equity in their house these days.
And quite frankly, like you were saying, doing some cosmetic updating on a place before you put it on the market won't cost you that much. Putting in just some new doors, maybe a little paint, like you said, if you need to replace carpet. If you have an equity line or if you just get an equity line, you probably update that thing for less than 10 grand and then who knows, that probably enhance the value or the sales price by, who knows, but I mean, it's going to definitely help with the sales price.
Yeah. It's going to help it move faster too.
Yeah, people
Uh,
come in and go, whoa, this is nice,
yeah.
rather than,
Just
whoa, I got a lot of work to do in here.
exactly. Again, no imagination. I'm sorry, but it's just true. It's tough unless you do this every day and look at, if you're, unless you're maybe an HGTV junkie. Um, but yeah, updating your house, presenting it in a good light is more important now than it was 6 months ago. 100%. You're absolutely right. Right on the money as usual. Um, what are rents doing in Bellevue? Not too much. I can't pull the whole east side on this program, but 3,700 for a 3-bed, 3,300 for a 2-bed home on average. Now I find that Rent-A-Meter is on the low side.
Yeah.
So especially for when you look at the east side, but Seattle too. So I typically like to look a little bit closer to this 70 or 90th percentile number, maybe even the 75th percentile number here just to get started. But
That's
again,
amazing. That's amazing rent.
yeah, yeah,
That's just, wow.
it's great. Could you, man? I mean, we've got a lease. There's a lease that our team has right now. It's like 7,000 on Mercer Island.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it's a 4-bedroom house. Anyways, yeah. So rents are up there for sure. If you're thinking about moving to this area, that's what you should expect to pay for rent. If you're looking at those sizes of house, obviously going to be a lot more competition in this 3-bed category because that's what everybody wants. And there you have it.
Mm-hmm.
So looking at condos real quick. This is Seattle. So let's go back over here to Seattle condos last week's. Down 7.6% last week. Now we're down 6.6% last week on the for sale inventory, down 1.6% last week versus up 6.3% on the sold. Same picture as we talked about earlier. 17.3% up last week, 15.5% up this week. So bringing that gap a little bit closer to zero there on the pending inventory. So yeah, and things are starting to level off and maybe slow down a little bit on the pendings for condos. Percent of list price. This is usually pretty close to 100, like all the time. You can see here throughout the months. So continuous day on market trend remaining steady versus last week. You can see here 32 average. Now CDOM is cumulative days on market. So unless they take it off the market for a number of days, then this CDOM here is going to track all of those days, whether they, take it off the market for a little bit, put it back on, it's going to track that whole thing. So just know that. 28 days this week versus 32. So still up from a month ago, but expect competition and inventory to get a little tighter because you're down. And 97%, not a whole lot of change there on the percent of list price. Pricing wise, this week versus last week, depreciating like everything else. Average sold price was $659 last week when we looked at it, $634 this week, still up versus a month ago, but we are heading in a downward trajectory into the fall and the holidays, which is fairly normal. Days on market for condos in Seattle is currently at 2.4 this week versus last week when we looked at it, 2.5. So going down in the days on market. Now, here's what you should expect to pay for rent in an apartment or condo. Wow, that doesn't seem right. Oh, that's because there's only 5 examples. $15,000 a month. But you've only got 5 samples here, so that's not really a good number. But look at this, $24,000 on the 75th percentile. I would say this is pretty normal here.
Yeah.
For Seattle, you've got this number here is your,
high rises,
7th floor, type apartment. It's got an amazing view. So that's what you should expect to pay there for rents. Moving on to East Side condos. Let me find last week's. Boop. There we go. So last week we had 300 homes or condos for sale. Now we're up to 320. Last week we had 73 solds. Now we're up 151, 97 pendings, 152 on the pendings. So definitely moving up in the world there. Percent of list price, days on market, looking at 14 average days on market versus 16 this week. 98% of list price versus 98% of list price, not huge change there. Pricing on condos, $839 was your average for sale price last week. And now this week we're looking at $828, almost $10,000 less this week. And your average sold price $737 this week versus $718 last week. So that one actually went positive on the change this week versus last week. Days on market for condos in the East Side, 1.7 versus last week's 2.1. So trending in a downward direction, or just at least leveling off on days on market all across single family, condo, Seattle, East Side markets. Everything's kind of trending down. It's hit that peak, it's hit that ceiling of days on market. So don't get too excited, buyers. That's the moral of the story. And sellers, moral for your story is present your home well, because it matters, especially with days on market and the price that you eventually get for it. So if you can do those updates, the cosmetic ones, a good rule of thumb is money grows where water flows. Remember that. Bathrooms, kitchens, those are going to be your money makers. Everything else is kind of ancillary. Let's still get you a return on investment. But Money flows where water grows. It's a good rule of thumb. Rents for condos in the east side market. For a 2-bedroom, you're looking at somewhere probably between 2532 and 4300. 3-bedroom, you're looking at 6500 to 9200, roughly somewhere in there. Not a whole lot of 4-bedroom condos, so no data there. Tom,
Sir.
what are the mortgages looking like? You got some stats for us?
Yeah, some fun little things. Unfortunately, the mortgage rates themselves are not a fun stat. We're sitting still right around 6%. Not a lot of movement. They went up a little bit and then they ticked back a little bit, and boy, we just stay right in that 6 1/8, 5.875, 6%. We're just right right there. Haven't really moved that much as far as that goes.
Are jumbos a similar story? Are they kind of
jumbos are a little lower, actually. We're sitting in, again, in Pierce, King, and Snohomish County, a jumbo loan is any loan that is over $891,250. Anything under that is conforming, but above that is jumbo. Rates for those are right around 5.5% right now. So a little bit better than the conforming, which is sort of upside down. Usually it's the other way around, you know. But
how about second homes or investment properties?
Not good pricing. Yeah, investment properties are way up, upper 6s.
Yeah.
And second homes probably like 6.5 in that area. Now, it's something to point out. The difference in the rates between condos and houses. People buy houses, they get that rate right around 6%. If you're buying a condo, the lenders tend to look at those as a little more risky of an investment. So those rates are sitting right around 6.5 for a condo. Just so you know, that's on the conforming side.
Yeah.
Again, jumbos are a little better than that, but
and then don't forget to add your HOA dues to that.
And don't forget to add the HOA dues. Yeah.
And make sure the insurance is solid, right?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about that, about the umbrella policies. What do they call that? HO6, I think they call that. The umbrella insurance policy that your HOA has. Make sure that your agent reads those things in the certificate. Because you just never know what's going to be in there. We ran into an issue a couple of weeks ago with one, that the language in the insurance, Fannie Mae didn't really like it too much. We were able to get it resolved, and everything was fine, but it's just something that comes up with condos every once in a while. One thing I saw, so I got 2 interviews that I saw. One was with a local Seattle appraiser. I saw a live presentation from him, and he was basically saying, you please don't pay attention to the national media. Said Seattle is very much an island in the United States. Whereas they're talking about gloom and doom with the real estate market. Yes, we're seeing changes in the Seattle market, but it's not gloom and doom. Again, we talked about it last week, how we're still up in sales prices. We're still up, what do we say, 10, 11% over a year ago. And I saw another interview with a woman named Jean Curro. She's with Bank of America, and she felt like we're still going to see, and again, I told you to not pay attention to the national media, then I bring in this national media interview, but she's from Bank of America. She said that nationally, we should still see a 10 to 15% appreciation in home values by the end of this year over year, which, okay, so we're not at 20, 25%.
or
or 10 to 15.
37%.
Doesn't matter. We're still in the positive. And that's nationwide. Now you look at the Seattle market, we've been looking at the stats on your stats, and still things look very, very good year over year. And this appraiser that I saw really felt that Seattle, with the continual hiring going on in the tech market, people continue to move here. Even with the rising interest rates, we will see home purchasing fairly strong in the Seattle market.
Love it. That brings me to some news articles that I looked at.
Did I just give you a good segue?
You just gave me a fantastic freaking segue into some news articles. Check this out.
Oh,
Kirkland, fastest growing startup city in the US.
What the what?
What the what? And now this is funny because this is actually this building here.
I know that building.
Yeah, it's a new building that was built right across from Bill Gates's office on Lake Washington Boulevard there.
Is that the one right across the street from Carillon?
Yes, Carillon Point.
Yeah.
Electronic Arts is actually moving into that building. So,
are they occupying the whole thing?
I believe so.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's a pretty big building.
Yeah, so they've got that there, and of course Kirkland Urban, which is that huge mixed use development, and Google took over that whole thing.
The whole thing.
Yep.
Yeah. And there's some exciting stuff happening in Kirkland for development.
Yeah.
In the next probably 5-10 years. So look out for that. Yeah, fastest growing cities report.
Wow.
By York IE, wherever that is, investment research firm.
So I guess what that's saying is that it's a lot of new startup companies are moving in there. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just, Seattle's a tech hub. It's become pretty much established as such.
Yeah.
You got Echodyne, ChainGuard. Echodyne's led by Bill Gates. Sequoia Capital is a huge investor out here. Apple, Airbnb.
Wow.
Good. I mean, they got everything. And the east side has just exploded because, I mean, let's be honest, it's managed a little bit better than Seattle. And they're a little bit friendlier to business over here.
I was going to say, yeah, they're a little friendlier to especially the tech business.
Exactly.
Seattle wants to tax the heck out of them. Bellevue's like, hey. Kirkland's like, hey, come on.
Yeah. Come on over.
Mm-hmm.
Same with the police department too. I don't want to get into that political argument, but
no, we won't go there.
LVPD's like, come on over.
Right.
Come on over. Snohomish County PUD or police department. Come on over.
Yeah.
Anyways. Now, if you're thinking about building a house, I just blasted out an email yesterday. There was a pretty awesome lot that got listed in Woodinville. It was over 2 acres, and it was a turnkey lot, ready to go. Plans, everything. It's a bring your own builder situation.
Mm-hmm.
And by my estimate, the 3,700 square foot Rambler,
wow,
with a cold storage underground, like it's total wine cellar situation.
Yep.
By my estimate, the build cost would probably be somewhere around 1.3 to 1.6 million.
Does that include the cost of the land?
No. Cost of the land, get this, $850,000.
Woo.
So yeah, I think it was closer to like 5 acres, if I remember. So this was a big chunk of land. You could totally turn it into some, put a barn up, equestrian property Just right outside of the urban growth area in Woodinville.
Oh, I see.
So yeah, you're still like, only one house
I was
per.
gonna say, so, and you're buying that land just to build your dream home. You're not buying it to plat it or
Exactly.
anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Nope. Not a lot of short platting going on out there. But if you're planning on building your own house, or maybe you're in the middle of building your house, you've probably noticed the price escalation from your builder. This report estimates about a 14% escalation this year in 2022 by the time we're done. And last year we saw 11.5% in construction costs. Now this was Nicholas McNamara, consultant at CBRE. So CBRE, if you don't know, big commercial real estate firm here in the Seattle area and across the nation, actually. But here's what we're looking for as far as lead times for things. So paint, obviously pretty low on the scale here. But when you get into roofs, HVAC equipment, roofing membranes, electrical panels, appliances, aluminum glazing, that's really only found in commercial buildings. And wood doors and frames. I mean, what is this in? This is in days, I think.
As far as what, waiting time?
Waiting time.
Wow. I didn't realize roofing and insulation was so backed up.
Yeah, pretty interesting. And some of the custom builders that I've talked to, they're saying the same thing. Our suppliers are giving us price sheet updates every 2 weeks now.
Wow.
So now if you're throwing that money into an investment property, maybe not such a bad idea, but if you're throwing it into your own single family house, have some cash set aside for emergencies. Don't blow your whole wad on improving your house. So going back to our discussion earlier about, hey, sellers, you need to improve your house. This is where it could hurt a little bit. So just watch out for that. And some moving and shaking here down on the Seattle waterfront. Sonoma Bio plans to move into F5's former Seattle waterfront campus. And here's a nice little map of where that is. So you've got the Space Needle over here. You got Expedia's property over here, and the F5 building right smack dab in the middle there, next to the Seattle Center, like Lower Queen Anne down here. Pretty cool spot.
Yeah, that's a great spot.
So I might see an uptick in
Climate Pledge Arena right there.
Yeah, go watch the new hockey team play, which is pretty awesome, by the way. I went and saw a game last year.
Still haven't been to one.
You definitely should get to one. It's awesome.
I hear they're a blast.
So that's all we got this week. Call us if you have any questions, or just want to bounce some ideas off of one of us. You're shopping, you're thinking about selling. Talk to Tom or I first before you make any big decisions. I'm happy to go through your options with you. Yeah. Thanks for tuning in.
Appreciate it.
Tom, I appreciate you for jumping on here.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it this week. And go get them this weekend, everybody. Get out there, find your house.
Yep. Get out there, and we'll see you next week.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Peace.